Welcome to the Music Major Meltdown podcast. My name is Blake.
My name is Sam.
And you're probably wondering what these two goofballs are doing recording a podcast. So I guess I'll tell you. Basically, 2020, really hard year, folks. And I was really bored. Super excruciatingly bored. So I don't know, conceived this little idea. And then I dragged Sam along, and Sam agreed to some extent. I think it was more, I just wanted to do it, and he just went ahead and was like, whatever. But I don't know, Sam. Are you happy you're here? I hope you are.
Oh, I'm very happy I'm here. Always am. See, on my end, my story is a little different than that. Of course, Blake was the one that conceived of the idea of this, but we started chatting about it. He gave me the pitch, and I just couldn't help myself. I thought it sounded like such a good time with a good buddy of mine. So here I am.
This is the only time he's ever going to say he's a good buddy of mine. Please document it forever.
He is not wrong. This is probably one of those few times.
So, but yeah, we just really wanted to make a fun podcast that's talking about the music that we love. I don't know. I think I listen to some interesting stuff. Sam listens to some interesting stuff. And, maybe you listen to a lot of the stuff we listen to. Chances are you probably don't. So our goal is to try to get you some new music. And if that's all we accomplish, you get a few laughs in too, think we're really awkward, I would say mission accomplished.
And I think we want to hear some new music ourselves. It's not just stuff that we already like. We want to hear some stuff that's new to us that we can talk about. We can share the new experience together.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I think just having the ability to always be looking for new music, to always educate yourself on what's out there is just a beautiful experience. And I don't know, I guess we should probably say the reason this is named Music Major Meltdown, another one of my genius ideas. I know. Thank you.
Genius is a very loose term in this.
Okay, so this is where the buddy thing starts going downhill. But it is because Sam and I were both music majors in college. So
Blake was a just regular music major, and I was a music education major. So we each bring a little bit something different to the table, even with just how we majored in music. You would agree?
Now, I thought you were going to make that about how your degree is more important than mine. So I misjudged you because you didn't do that. And now you're going to do that.
I will never try to argue that music education is more important than just regular music. I mean, I could throw in, if I wanted to, the idea that nobody who majors in music could do it without somebody who majored in music education, and how everybody should be exposed to music, and that is usually through their music teacher. I could say that stuff, but I'm not going to.
Wow. What a gentleman. What a saint, folks.
You're welcome.
Applaud you, Sam. But yeah, so we're both music majors. We obviously come from, that expertise on the subject of music and wanting to talk about popular music with that background. So it brings a interesting perspective. We're going to be talking about music maybe a little more deeply than you normally talk about music in your life. So we think that's really important.
Yeah, I agree. And I think part of that is going to be important and hopefully interesting for you as the listener is that though we both have similar backgrounds and we do like a good amount of the same stuff, we also have a lot of differences in our musical tastes. And we have a lot of things that, quite frankly, we disagree on. We might agree on pieces of it, but we disagree on a lot when it comes to music. So if you enjoy two friends spending time arguing with each other, then this is the podcast for you. Thank you for joining.
Thank you for joining us. Yeah, I mean, just back to that point, there's a lot of stuff that, we have tried to listen to together, and we just know that it's not really our thing sometimes. And you know what? That's the beauty of music. Everyone has an opinion. Everyone's opinion is subjective when it comes to music, as much as I try to say my opinion's objective always. Um, but that's the great unifying thing about music. It comes from a lot of different places, but no matter what you like something, and that's the important thing. Speaking of what we like, Sam, do we want to go ahead and get into this?
I don't know. Are we ready? First topic of first podcast.
I don't know.
It's an exciting moment.
You're right. I should leave.
Yeah, I should. We should go.
Oh, he actually left. I was just faking. Okay, we're doing it.
Here we go.
All right.
First segment.
The first segment. I am going to talk about Blake's songs of the week. So every week on this podcast, or every couple of weeks, or whenever we record it, which is hopefully going to be every couple of weeks, each of us is going to present our music for the week. It's music that each of us personally loves, that the other has agreed to listen to have a very intriguing conversation about. And so for my first two songs, I chose one of my favorite albums of all time, A Rush of Blood to the Head by Coldplay, specifically the two songs, Amsterdam and Warning Sign. So before I get right into the nitty-gritty of these two songs, let me just say this album is beautiful. If you've ever been a Coldplay fan, or even if you haven't, if you ever heard the song Clocks, that's the album that these two songs also come from. The album has 6 singles that are just all amazing in their own ways, and neither of these two songs are even a single. So has such great depth to the album that is just uncomparable with the majority of music. So I won't talk too much more about the album, but what I do think is important to know is the tone of these albums. The sound was very similar between all the songs. There's this echoey, kind of melancholy bliss, but yeah, it's like despair in the beauty of the moment somehow is how I describe the whole album. And Sam thinks that's crazy, but you know what?
I don't think it's crazy. I'm just chuckling because I've, as much as I think you kind of sound ridiculous with your fancy artful language, I know I describe music the same way sometimes. So I'm just laughing at the humor of both you and myself.
We are music lovers here, people. So, I hope you know that by now. It's why we started a podcast about music, not dogs, but we do like dogs. So the first song on that I'm going to talk about from this album is Amsterdam. Amsterdam starts with this just eerie quiet, like there's this little fade into it before the most beautiful piano chords that I have ever heard in my entire life start playing. It is one of the most interesting chord progressions I have ever heard. I've tried to play it on piano about 20 million times. Never can figure it out because there's a lot of not normal chords in that. Sam, yeah, I see you shaking your head about piano. It's hard to play, people.
Yeah.
Even for music majors, it sucks.
Yes, so. It does.
But Amsterdam is about kind of just constant, sadness, kind of not being able to admit it to yourself, kind of denying all of this stuff is happening up until a boiling point where you're like, no, this is kind of like the end for me. And then somebody swoops in to save you. A point that sometimes people get in that in their lives. And I think the reason I connected with the song so much is I really started listening to it this year. And I was like, wow, this is very 2020. This is very much like, it's very easy to get in a place like that. And I should say right away, like, I'm not a big lyrics person. I'm not a guy that just looks at the lyrics and like gets overly involved in them. But for some reason, these two songs are different. And I think it's because Coldplay's lyrics are never overly metaphoric. They're not too complicated. Chris Martin writes from the heart. And I think the realness of it just makes it easier for me to connect with. So there's a lot of emotions in the song. The song constantly builds throughout until the whole band's joining in at the end with that rush of the person coming to save them. And one of my favorite things about all of music that is very prevalent in this is male falsetto. Can we all just agree that just some good dang male falsetto, wow, you need that in your life.
For anybody listening out there who might be wondering, I have no idea what falsetto is. Male falsetto, to give sort of the factual side of the music, falsetto especially in males is when they go into this higher, more breathy and airier area of their voice. That if you hear me talking like this or singing a little bit, I'm not singing in falsetto. It doesn't really change how my voice sounds. But if I try to go up into nice and high notes, I have so much more of an airier and breathier quality in order to achieve those high notes and to give them a nice sound. And I will agree with you on this one, Blake. Chris Martin really has a fantastic falsetto that comes through really well in the song.
And yes, he does. And great definition, great explanation of falsetto there. Chris Martin's is definitely one of my favorite in all of music. So yeah, that's Amsterdam. Do you want to tell me your thoughts on Amsterdam before I move to the next song? Or
I liked it. I'll give my brief thoughts at the very least. As we sort of said at the beginning, that we do have some differences in our musical taste. I will say that I do like Coldplay, but it's not something that I listen to very often, not a group I listen to often. But I will say, if the songs on this album are all a lot like these ones, I think I would enjoy this style. It just has that, it is exactly what you imagine Coldplay sounds like. When you imagine a Coldplay song, whichever one it is that you imagine, this song and the other one, Warning Sign, as well, both have that just pure, great Coldplay, traditional Coldplay sound.
It is the most Coldplay album, is what I would say.
I agree.
They really had that was their second album, and I think they really just started coming into their own. And after that album came out in about 2004, 2005, they started exploring and experimenting a little bit more with other genres. But I think that will remain the pinnacle of their music. I really do. So getting into the next song, Warning Sign, this one is a little bit easier to play for any guitar players out there. I try to frequent this one in my acoustic playing. So Warning Sign is a weird tale on a relationship, actually. So it's kind of like you're in a relationship, but you're afraid of commitment, and you're kind of looking for these signs that kind of tell you when it's over, so you can kind of, get out of the relationship. And you keep doing this up until the point that it's almost too late to commit, and you end up crawling back to the person that you've been hurting because you're not fully committing to them. And they take you with open arms, and it's great, but it's also kind of your warning that if you screw up again, they're not going to be there to take you back the next time. So what's interesting about Coldplay, it's also one of their criticisms is that Chris Martin writes a lot about his unrequited love. But out of all the songs written about his hardships and relationships, I think this is the one that really stands tall above all the rest of them. It's just got a beautiful guitar line. If any guitar players out there know what I'm talking about, it's got this beautiful hammer-on pull-off combination, which is basically when you are playing just a string and you hammer onto a note and let it ring throughout, and then you pull off of that note. And when you do that fast enough, it creates like a na. And so it's just this beautiful ringing of guitar over acoustic chords. And again, we see the male falsetto show up at the end, which is just the most blissful thing. in Chris Martin's array of skills of singing. I know I sound like a real nerd and I sound probably like a real pansy, but man, do I love me some good falsetto. Chris Martin is just an amazing singer. And yeah, that just like I don't cry, but that song gets me emotional. So I wanted to present those two songs. Again, the tone is kind of interesting. If you like The Scientist by Coldplay, you're going to love these songs. They have the same thing kind of going on with them, where they're not, there's something about the production quality that makes it kind of spacey. And it also might actually have a, how would I describe this? A quarter tones. It actually might be tuned down a little bit. So basically what that means is if you play a piano, these songs, their notes are in between the keys of a piano. It's just slightly tuned down to give it this aural effect that is just kind of unique from other music. So you're not going to hear it that much, which is probably why they did it. So your thoughts on that, Sam? I know that was
I will say, sort of very similar to what I said with last one, but I will say I liked this one a lot better. You mentioned Blake. Well, first of all, I also, before I forget, it's been a long time since I've heard somebody use the word pansy just in casual conversation. So I would be remiss if I didn't call you out on your use of the word pansy. I think that one went out of style a solid like 80 years ago.
That's all right. That's all right. I own up to it.
But yeah, I really enjoyed this one. You mentioned that you're not much of a lyrics guy in general. I very much so am a lyrics guy. I don't think it can turn a bad song into a good song to have really good lyrics, but I am a fan of really good lyrics, and I just loved the message and the story that went with this one. Just the really being afraid and terrified of what this relationship is, and so looking for a way to get out of it. That lots of people talk about warning signs as like, ooh, you should have seen that warning sign before you kept going in the relationship. So then to have a person saying, I'm looking for warning signs, I want to find the reason I should leave this relationship. I want to find it. I want to find a way out. And then realizing that the whole time they really were just afraid and they missed the person. They wanted the relationship. I think that's just a beautiful story that can be so relatable. I relate to it. I mean, just a fear in a relationship of how far it's going can be very powerful. So I'm a huge fan of the lyrics, and I think the music just very, very naturally complements it. I think sort of how we talked about the Coldplay-iest Coldplay songs out there. I think the message in this song is one of the most Coldplay-iest Coldplay messages to be out there. Just the music matches that longing and desperation and sadness, but also some happiness, things like that all mixed together. So I did very much so enjoy this one. Blake, you did a good job this week. You picked some solid music.
Love it. Week one's a win.
Week one is a win for you, my friend.
Let's see if it's going to be a win for you.
All right. Jumping in. Oh, so one thing that people will realize about me, especially as you listen and as you continue to listen, I am very much a person that does deep dives into particular bands. So I don't like listen to all the generic, like I do sometimes, but I don't just listen to everything on the radio and get a sprinkling of a bunch of artists. I'm more that if I'm going to listen to an artist, I want to go deep into their music and listen to all of what they have. And so today is my songs of the week. I'm doing sort of a deep dive in 2 songs, which is a very strange way to balance it out, but a deep dive in 2 songs to perhaps my favorite group of all time, Paramore. Woo! Paramore has been a band that I have been a fan of for really as long as I've enjoyed regular pop music. I wasn't really into popular music or bands or anything besides like the occasional thing I heard on the radio until really my sophomore year of high school. I just wasn't exposed to anything like that. Then at a band conference where I was playing my tuba.
Oh, you played the tuba.
I was just waiting around with some of my other friends in high school, and they started playing music by this group, and I was listening to it, and I was like, this just captures everything I'm feeling. This is so good. And that's one of those main songs that really just hit home for me at that time was Misery Business by Paramore, which is perhaps, I would say, one of their most favorite songs.
Oh, it's got to be their most famous. I mean,
I think it's one of their most famous songs off of, perhaps for sure, their most famous album. This album was the Riot album, Riot with an exclamation point, all caps. And just, it is that pure, just so pure Paramore lyrics of just like, oh, I almost can't even describe it. Just this like angry high school drama fueled like teen angst. That is exactly it. Like teen angst is what they hit on so much. Just like the chorus, whoa, I never meant to brag, but I got him where I want him now. Whoa, it was never my intention to brag, to steal it all away from you now, but God, does it feel so good. Oh, I listened to that, and like, even as I'm just saying the lyrics, I just want to headbang it out because it is so good. And just this drama fueled story of she's trying to steal another girl's guy because she wants him. So she's in the business of misery, trying to steal this person to make the other person miserable. And oh man, and just the music itself complements it so well. That traditional, I think about sort of very similar to the Spider-Man movies, the new Marvel Spider-Man movies have taken a very much like a punk music approach, kind of like if you think about Guardians of the Galaxy, they had that very 70s style music, 70s, maybe a little 80s-ish, but that blend there that they use throughout the whole movie. The Spider-Man movies, Spider-Man Homecoming and Spider-Man Far From Home, they do a similar thing, except they use sort of this punk feel of music. And man, you can just hear that like shredding electric, intense, always a fast rhythm, always like emotional, but not really much depth of emotion. You can hear that in Paramore's songs. You can hear it all over the Riot album, all over, really, I would say pretty much their first 3 albums. In general, you hear it. So
now I'll interject before Sam starts making all the Spider-Man fans mad. He just means that it's influenced by the 70s punk music in Spider-Man.
Yes. This has influence in punk music, just, I mean, really from all of history. And I just use Spider-Man as an example of sort of the modern uses of that punk music. So Blake, before I start rambling on about the other song, tell me, thoughts on Misery Business?
Misery Business has been a song that I've loved for a long time too. So that's the one thing where we got a little bit different is sometimes me and Sam actually do listen to the same music. And this is one of those maybe very few instances, but week 1, we got a W. So I do love Misery Business. It's exactly as Sam describes, the teenage angst. You got the little, is it a violin at the start? Am I mistaken about that? Or is it?
It's something similar. It's, if not violin, I can't quite place it. It really is just sort of like a horn line, kind of like you hear, you don't really hear it throughout the song, but it is very much like a 40s jazz radio version of their main riff that they play through like a filter to make it sound like an old radio. And then they go like, hit that snare, because, and then they get into the rest of it.
Because Paramore, specifically on Misery Business, does this amazing thing where, you know, like you said, they have it kind of like in an old-timey style, and then they play the same thing on guitar, but it's just like this contrast of styles. And I don't want to get too far ahead of myself because I know you'll talk about this, but the next song Sam's going to talk about kind of does a little bit of a similar thing where they kind of set you up for a song. And then they completely take that expectation away and they give you something completely different. And they're just like, bam, no, we're changing our emotions right now. It's teenage angst. My emotions change all the time. And right now we feel like, ah.
And I am with you 100%. So
the guitar just screams. Haley Williams has got an awesome voice. Definitely proof that there are still awesome female lead vocalists in rock. Because unfortunately that it seemed like that was dwindling for a little bit. We didn't like as we went into the 21st century, rock in general was kind of dying per se. And I think Haley Williams being there for Paramore, improving their dominance on the rock charts was really awesome. And showing that, rock's here to stay. And, so obviously a lot of punk influence for them. And I just, man, they're just so much rage. There's so much passion with them. And like, I don't focus on the lyrics too much. I had no idea that's what the song was about. I could have listened to that song 5 million times. I would have never known. I mean, that just makes it even more like, wow, that perfectly encapsulates the sound. Like those lyrics are perfect. But I could have listened to that song 5 million times and never known the difference. Which is fine. That's just the way I listen to music. I'm sure there's some people out there. I'm sure I'm probably in the minority. But I do really love the song. It encompasses early 2000s like nothing else. Like that is early 2000s music. It's like that punk, a little bit of emo. Like it's just wow. Haley Williams, super awesome.
I couldn't agree more with you. I mean, it's just, everything you said, I agree with. It's so good. Just the sound of it, it just encapsulates early 2000s so much. Haley Williams' voice is so unique, just partly in the fact that she's a female vocalist in a rock punkish group. The only other one I can think of kind of from very similar era is Taylor Momsen with The Pretty Reckless.
They both have does thou forget that Gwen Stefani was in No Doubt?
Yes, Gwen Stefani. I mean, she did quit on us in that and moved to pop. Very pop.
But the albums she gave us with No Doubt were no doubt fantastic.
Oh, okay. This is not a pun-based podcast.
Gotta get one good
If I were the editor, I would have edited that out.
Well, it's a good thing I'm the editor.
Good. All right, moving on. So we sort of have with Misery Business, you have this their early career sound. Their first 3 albums are they progress, they have their differences. But that song, Misery Business, really just captures the sound that is there in their first 3 albums. Their 4th album, they started to really depart and sort of go a different, also super interesting direction. And they really, I think, landed on their feet so well in their 5th album. After Laughter is an amazing album, just in general, overall. And it is Paramore at their new and fresh best. And Fake Happy is not necessarily the main hit or the main tracks off of it, the singles, you would say. But I think it really hits at what I love about this new era of Paramore and Haley Williams, especially making music. So this song opens on this very just like calm, mellowed out, just Haley Williams singing with a guitar, very like easygoing melody, very easygoing guitar, just so like simple and almost like a happy-ish sound. But she starts going into these lyrics that I think are just gorgeous, that really set up the rest of the song. So like how Blake said, it sort of sets up one expectation and changes it. They do that in so many ways in this song, that it starts with this sort of easygoing, happy-ish guitar, a little bit slower, a little bit maybe more mellow, but still easygoing, but says, I love making you believe what you get is what you see. but I'm so fake happy. I feel so fake happy. And says lines like that, keeps going. And then you get this idea of like, oh, this person's sad. I mean, there's like this real sadness there. And then it goes in.
Happy, but they're real sad.
Yeah, fake happy, which is, yeah, they're so fake happy, which I could say that over and over, but that almost means nothing. They are just so like pretending. They're not being who they are. They're just pretending to appeal to everyone else. And then they keep that theme of pretending going by then changing gears completely and throwing in this awesome, like almost like an 80s synth sound before the drums sort of kick in, and then this it's a sick bass line. As a bass player, I love that bass line that they play right there. But they keep using the same types of lyrics. Like, if I smile with my teeth, bet you believe me. If I smile with my teeth, I think I believe me. But please don't ask me how I've been. Don't make me play pretend. Oh no, what's the use? Oh please, I bet everybody here is fake happy too. I mean, it's like poetry. And I know, again, like I criticized Blake at the beginning for being just very overly dramatic with how he was describing it. But
oh no, it's a criticism.
This song just reads like poetry, and they use the music to help blend that sound. I was very blessed. A few years ago, I went to a Paramore concert, and I loved listening to Hayley Williams talk, both a little in the concert, and I had read some interviews too, where she talks about how the lyrics of a lot of the songs on After Laughter are very depressing, and were her dealing with the traumas and the different things she's gone through in her life. And that the whole reason, I think what encapsulates that whole feeling is the reason the album is called After Laughter is because of that feeling you get after you've had a really good laugh. You're like joyous, and you're all like it's almost like a high that you feel. Blake, you know a little bit more about brain science. What are those like happy chemicals in your brain that can be triggered through laughing and joy?
Yeah.
But
I am a psychology major. I should know this. It's like a euphoric state, but I don't actually remember what the chemical is.
Hey, not important. You get these highs off of brain chemicals when you're laughing and everything because you feel that joy. After laughter is those moments right after you finish laughing where you're coming down off of that high and you sort of hit this bottom point of like, you almost feel sad because the moment is over. So After Laughter, the whole album is about that feeling of like, it's joyous and it kind of feels good, but you also are coming down into depression. And that's sort of, I compared, like the reason I picked Misery Business and this one is there is barely a hint of that feeling in Misery Business and also in a lot of their early music. They don't talk about it. They don't talk about like their depression and how they've been and like all of those like very real human experiences. They just go with teen angst, which has its own beauty and has its own great sound. But I love the way they have progressed from where they started with teen angst as they were teenagers, and now to as they've reached adulthood, they're still together as a group. The band members have changed here and there, but that's a topic for another podcast.
Oh boy.
They have get excited, Blake. It's going to be awesome. They have stuck together as a group with at least the core members together, but they've also grown as a group. So you can start listening to Paramore in your teens and embrace the teen angst. And then as you grow up, and as I've grown up, they've followed me on my journey and start covering more topics that are real to me. And I hope real to all of you listening as you listen. Yeah. So that's sort of the short version, both of why I love both of these songs for their just poetic natures in some way, and the music sort of by flipping the story on its head, by doing positive music over a negative story, negative outcome, can emphasize the real nature of what they're talking about. And I especially then think for Blake, this is really interesting because he's not much of a lyrics guy.
Not much of a
And
lyrics
so
guy.
the lyrics are what really hit home the points that they're trying to make, then combined with the music. So Blake, Fake Happy, what are your thoughts?
First, I just gotta say, I'll be honest, I'm jealous. I'm jealous of the way you have grown with Paramore. And the reason of that is I don't have a band that I've grown with. I have bands that like I've grown up listening to and continue to listen to. But I don't have like this band that like I was a teenager, like a young teenager listening to them, and they've grown as I've grown. I feel like a lot of the bands I've listened to, I listen to bands kind of in retrospect. If like I like to kind of know, what's this band about before I go check them out. It's kind of hard for me to be like, oh, this is your debut album. Let me just listen to you right now. When there's so many bands out there that it's kind of like taking, like, at this point in my life, it's the childhood innocence is gone. Like I can't just like start over and go ahead and listen to a band now, because the issues of a 12-year-old and a 23-year-old are a lot different, but you start to realize the issues of a 23-year-old and a 35-year-old are not nearly as different. So they're certainly different, but there's less of a difference there. So I don't know. I've definitely had bands that like Foo Fighters, for instance. I have grown up with their music, but like they were already, I think Dave Grohl is like 30 years older than me. So it's not really like I'm growing up with Dave Grohl. Like he is like like he's a dad, like a fully certified adult, whereas like I'm just kind of starting to be an adult, I guess.
Fully certified adult.
Fully
That
certified adult.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
He has his certificate. They sent him the official, he has his license. He has his adulthood license.
He does. Yeah. And I'm sure he's got it framed somewhere, like the responsible adult that Dave Grohl probably is. So, but I'm jealous, not in like a bad way. Like I'm really happy that that's something you have, and I wish that was something I had. And so I guess I'll keep looking for that. But
and I think on the flip side, I think part of like, I'm in a way I'm proud or happy, I guess. I don't know the right word, but in a very positive way for both of us, I'm happy that you're jealous, because I think it's kind of cool that I've had that experience, and that like you can sort of see what that experience has meant for me. But I think that's really like insightful as to how each of us listens to music. You have a wider breadth that you don't always go super in depth on the artist. You have stuff that you listen to that you've enjoyed, but it's just been a little bit of it. So I would say probably you've grown up with music overall, that your music tastes have changed and you've just switched artists as you've gone. So like you have had more or less the same experience. It's just been with music in general, and with a few different artists, especially like Coldplay, I imagine played a big role in your life at one point.
Sure. For sure. They still play a big role in that. The weird thing about Coldplay is, so I don't want to get too far off topic, but it is an interesting segue. And then we'll definitely get back to Fake Happy, because I actually really do like the song. Wins for both of us.
Oh, double wins for both of us.
This is a thing, apparently, that we're doing.
Double wins.
Double wins. But with Coldplay, I just recently decided to listen to their whole discography. I held on to a lot of my favorite songs by them, and it was like 3, maybe 4 songs. And then for Rush of Blood to the Head, it was like 6 songs. But, just like not all the songs on every album. Like I didn't listen to their full discography. I for some reason just wanted to keep moving on and moving on to different bands and different bands. And so this year I decided to do that with my time that COVID has allowed me, a weird way of finally getting around to music, but it happened. So yeah, like it kind of feels like I've grown up with them in a way. It's just I didn't, I did a lot of growing and like very quickly. I would say the same way with the Beatles. You know, obviously I wasn't born in the 60s or lived during the 60s, but you listen to their albums and I felt like I liked a lot of their music that was like, I don't know, Hello Goodbye, 8 Days a Week. I saw her standing there, like the early stuff. It was easy to like that when I was a kid. It was harder to understand, like, and I Am the Walrus or Tomorrow Never Knows, the Abbey Road medley, uh, you know, some of the weirder things, some of the more compositionally intricate things that they did, it was easier to understand that the more I grew up. It was easier to understand that the disdain with writing pop songs, like simpler pop songs, and it was easier to like feel that. So yes, in a way I've had that. It's just a little bit different. It's a lot different, but that's music.
That's music.
Okay, let me get back to Fake Happy though. I was surprised. So I know when I like a song when it gets stuck in my head, and I don't do anything to like force this. It's not like I listen to a song over and over. I listened to the song a couple of times, obviously, to prepare myself, but like I listened to it like once more today just to make sure I like fully understood what I thought about it. And I just have that, like not the intro of it, but the dun 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 dun, and it's just like, wow, this is banger. This just makes me want to get up and just jam. And it's got that cool synth part with this the bass part is amazing, like Sam says. And it's so weird because I never connected lyrically with Misery Business like that. And I think it's because I knew it that I just never bothered to take a look at the lyrics. As soon as like I read the title, I was like, I think I maybe have a gist for what the song is. And then I definitely listened to it and was like, this is, yes, exactly what I thought it was. It's literally, it's Semi-Charmed Life by Third Eye Blind. It's the happy sound with all the sad lyrics. Like it's the masking up of the story.
Exactly. And with that, and it's just something I thought about because I neglected to mention it, it's emphasized yet again as you hit the chorus, because then you get that more traditional Paramore sound that you hear a bit of, or similar things in like Misery Business and their earlier albums. That it's sort of the whole thing is this like keeping it together. I'm fake happy the whole time. I'm just like, everything's fine, everything's fine. And then at the chorus, they hit the breaking point. And it's just this like anger and like not quite angst anymore, but just frustration of like, oh, I've been fake happy. I've been pretending to be happy all day. I'm done now. Don't ask me how I've been. Don't make me play pretend for you anymore. I'm done. And it's just like, oh, they hit
real
like the
emotion.
same. Yeah, they hit just this intense emotional, like just outbreak, just like and just like a bit of rage almost that they tap into to emphasize the point of like, we're pretending to be happy, everything's fine. You can sort of hear how I'm talking, that I'm not really fine. And then they hit a point of just like, okay, and then like they hit you with just this great like wall of sound that just like it's all sort of light bass and synth and things like that. And then you get wham, like smacked in the face with their typical electric guitar, punk drum, like.
Yeah, and they incorporate all that stuff, and it's underlying even a little bit because you're just like, it is. It's like it is Paramore, but it's like it's new Paramore. Like you can
Hmm.
tell that there's this. They have done like they are not the emo punk band anymore. They are a band that's whatever the hell they say they want to be.
Hmm. And I sort of see the same thing with Coldplay, sort of connecting these ideas together. Like Amsterdam and Warning Sign are off the same album. They have the very similar theme. Like we talked about that very typical Coldplay sound that they would then sort of use that as a base point and then build from. I
Mm.
think about their most recent album, Everyday Life, and how I think that is the most recent, right?
It is the most
The
recent, and it
all right,
is a
I'm no
return
expert
to
on Coldplay.
form. It is a
Yes,
return to form.
and it is excellent because they hit a lot of those like same musical sounds and theme type things you can talk about, like musical idea that it still is definitely Coldplay, like you hear all the way back in A Rush of Blood to the Head, but they introduce like all this world music type things, like different cultures from around the world incorporating it into their music, and then just like a little bit more dancing and happy and a little bit more like upbeat in
A
a
little
lot of
more
spots.
like deeper introspective lyrics that like are more not just about feelings and stuff, but they like, you know, they're getting political in a way, and it's like, wow, that's a different side of you there.
It's sort of like if you have
It's a gospel song.
their early like everything Rush of Blood to the Head and the couple albums sort of surrounding that are sort of like their and I know like they're two different groups of two different things, but comparing the two things, it's sort of like that's their like Riot album where they're just dealing with their emotions. They're not like much depth to the emotion or difficulty struggle with the emotions. Like it's there, but it's sort of again that kind of almost like high school-ish, maybe college-ish emotional sensations. Not always, but then it's, I mean, obviously, and this is a good time to sort of bring this up. These are very broad statements we can make that I think we can say are true in some regard. But of course, I can already hear the comments ringing in about how, oh, there's this song or this song or this song. Like, what are you guys thinking? What are you talking about? It's not a perfect theory for everything. Everything we talk about
We
on
do
this
love
show,
comments, though.
we do love comments, so let them ring in. We will deal with your angry, hateful comments. But we are talking about just very broad strokes. And I think in our experience with the music and our limited professional, I put professional in quotes because even though we have a major in it, it's all very subjective.
Like us talking about pop music is not what we got our degrees in. So
Exactly. So we are not by no means professionals. So we might paint in broad strokes, and there will be exceptions to all of the rules. I mean, even in Misery or in the album Riot, there are a few songs that are a little bit deeper and are a little bit just punk like teen angst stuff that they go a little deeper. But broad strokes, Rush of Blood to the Head and Riot both have that sort of angsty feel to it. Paramore has it their After Laughter because this is their fifth album where they've now gone into like real struggling emotion that both adults and youth are dealing with. And so I'm personally excited for when Paramore hits their Everyday Life, where they've hit a new point in their music that like where they're talking about brand new things. They're fully fledged, sort of how Dave Grohl is a certified adult. I wouldn't say Paramore is quite at certified adulthood yet, but they are getting close.
Yeah. By the way, that's just a plug right there for Everyday Life. It's a great album. There's a gospel song on it. There's the first swearing ever on a Coldplay album too. Don't know if that's what you're interested in, but Chris Martin swearing. It's kind of a weird feel, kind of an interesting feel, and a lot of world music, like Sam said.
You can tell especially just briefly, when people swear in music, when they don't do it often, it has way more meaning. Swearing can have a lot of meaning. It's the oversaturation of it in your music that becomes kind of like Like, okay, this is just, they say these words all the time.
And for
When
that,
you listen to an artist that doesn't do it much.
So one more quick point, and then we've got another topic we want to discuss before we officially close the first podcast. I did think it was interesting. You chose these two songs, and I don't think you saw this comparison, but it's almost like Misery Business is the high school, like the rage, the concept of just teen angst. And then Fake Happy was this like, this is all the emotions I felt here, but I didn't know how to articulate them until right now. Because now I'm like not in high school. I understand why I had those mood swings and stuff, is because like everything was like I wanted everything to be perfect and I thought I was always happy, or I thought I was always supposed to be happy. And then Fake Happy is like, I realize I'm not always supposed to be happy, but I am angry about it.
Exactly. I think that's just really a sign with a lot of artists. And I did kind of notice that. I think you put it into better words than I would have. So props to you on that one. But I think most artists, when you listen, it's like almost every album, no matter who the artist is, what the album is, almost every album tells a little story in some way. There's very few albums out there that you can really just say, this is a collection of songs.
Sure.
That's it. They all tell at least something of a story, whether that story is as complex as an album. I forget the name of the album, but there's a group called The Streets, which is a British rap group / artist. I don't know a whole lot of details about them, but literally the whole album, it's like 12 tracks that follow this guy through a day in his life. Like, it is just like
a concept album right there.
Yeah, concept album where it literally tells a story. But there are also albums out there where even if it doesn't outwardly seem like it tells a story, the artist is telling you something through what they're saying. They have themes that cross over the whole album. And then what I think is interesting in so many artists is that you can then trace those themes that they address into this larger story of their career, that you can follow like what they care about, what they're writing about, everything like that. And it works really well. So I think Paramore does it. Coldplay has done it.
Any decent band should do it. Like any decent band should write a story over the course of their careers, whether they intend to or not. Because like if you're writing a song and you've written like 2, 3, 4, however many albums, chances are like you've eventually developed like this connection, like you've had to develop an emotional connection to those songs, and there's got to be a way that story continues. There's got to be somewhere that led you to writing the next thing. So I think we can agree.
Exactly.
Good artists create stories.
Creating stories and that emotional connection. I mean, that's what in every story, that's what sells the story. Yeah. And I think, that's sort of, if we had a theme across both of our songs, which this is not something we planned to have by any stretch, connecting theme from all 4 of our songs of the week is how much an emotional connection sells a song, and not just sells it monetarily, but sells it in terms of it being a great song.
And even not being a lyric guy, like I can understand that there's a story within. And I think even just musicality gives a story. Like there's a story in the sound. You can literally have a story without having lyrics, but the lyrics add to that story so richly.
Yeah. Getting prim and proper with that idea, going up to adjust my bow tie that I imaginary am wearing. If you go and look at Beethoven's 5th Symphony, surely the opening of it is meant to represent fate knocking at the door.
The normal people don't want to hear about this.
Oh my!
Curses you!
All right, we're not getting that fancy.
Blasphemous classical music on our pop music fans.
Okay. All I'm trying to say is that even music that doesn't have words, doesn't have lyrics, can also tell a story. And that was the point. I was just trying to emphasize your point, Blake.
You were.
All right.
All right. I know we're getting
Move
a
on to
little
the next
bit long
topic.
here, but we are going to get into our last topic of the night. Our top 10 guilty pleasure songs in no order, but these are 10 songs that maybe you didn't know Sam and I liked. Now, before we go ahead with this list, we want you to also be commenting what your guilty pleasure songs are. We want a lot of comments. We want to know what you're ashamed of to listen to, but somewhere deep inside, you still think is good somehow. So let's kick it off. Sam, take it away.
All right. So you sort of saw in what we were talking about and how passionately we talked about it. We both have very much a rock flair to what we listen to, sort of different areas of rock, but different areas, but still very much rock is what we both care about.
We like to think we're cool.
Yeah, that's true. This song, this first guilty pleasure song, departs from that in many ways. We both love the song Toxic by Britney Spears. I mean, there is nothing better. I mean, really, I could put almost all of Britney Spears' songs on this list. I love me some Britney. And just the total early 2000s, right?
Yeah, she just had a meltdown, but her music was amazing.
Yeah,
I don't know, man.
It's so good. I mean, it's just a fun one to listen to. Fun lyrics, just everything. Oh, it's just a really great listen. Very poppy, very cool string sound in it throughout. Some interesting string sound effects throughout. Super cool. Toxic by Britney Spears, number 1. Number 2, Blake. Comment time.
I got one quick point. I will not say this, or I will say this quite often. Auto-tune, when you use it to enhance the voice. Don't use it to make your voice singable. If you have to use auto-tune to make it, auto-tune does not make it sound good. Use auto-tune for style. And Britney Spears does a perfect job of using auto-tune in Toxic to enhance the style in certain areas. She doesn't use it the whole song. She doesn't need to. She's got a perfectly good voice, but it contrasts with her voice to use it where she does. So good auto-tune, folks. Not all auto-tune is good. All right, number 2. This is a hard one for me to read, and it's Creep by Radiohead. I love Radiohead so much to the point that I think I've made Sam just throw up with how much I talk about Radiohead.
He's not wrong.
But Creep is their only US top 40. It's one of their only 2 US top 40 hits. It's the song that everyone wanted them to play. It's the only reason people went to a Radiohead concert, and they hate it so much that they stopped playing it in concert for 15 years. They hated their biggest song. And then it made them write all the albums that they did later to get away from Creep. And yet I still listen to it all the time because it's just infectious. And they know they wrote something good, but they just wanted to write something better. But it's frustrating. But it's good. They tried to screw the song up, Sam. They tried to. You know what they did? Yeah, you hear Creep.
Tell me what they did.
So the little doom doom doom, but I'm a creep. That doom doom was Johnny Greenwood hitting his guitar because he was trying to screw up the whole recording, and the producers is like, "Do more of that. We love that," and they're just like, "Dang it!" They hate it. They didn't want to record it. They tried to screw it up. It didn't work. It made it a hit.
Oh man, I, as you know, Radiohead is not my absolute favorite. I've grown to like it more, but man, Creep is just one of those great slow and melodic rock songs that just sort of I consider it almost like swimming in a sound bath. You just sort of
in a sound bath. Wow. Now certified adult doesn't sound so bad. Oh man. Well, moving on from that horrid comment, we next have Shiny Happy People by Rem. I know probably many of you might not have heard this song. It's from the 80s. It's got this weird like classical thing going on at the beginning, and then it gets into this it's a cool guitar riff. The lyrics are completely nonsensical. Like the song was written for a child, and yet I still love it. Rem hates it. Of course, all the songs are my guilty pleasures. It's just the band that wrote them. Michael Stipe, the lead singer of Rem, once said about this song, if we ever get to send a song into space, or like put a song in a time capsule for people to know us by, that song would not be Shiny Happy People. And I was like, man, why do I like this song so much?
I mean, it just has a fun sound. It's just like very just like it's reminiscent in some ways of like the Beatles a little bit with that sort of chipper sound that they have. And they just one of those feel good songs that, yes, Rem hates it, but that isn't going to stop me from feeling good listening.
It's got an infectious guitar riff. Solid song. It is on our guilty pleasures, though.
All right. Next one.
Kicking it back over to me for Break Free by Ariana Grande. Sam's, I don't know, one of the top 5 favorite artists, probably.
I will be honest, she has slipped down my ranking of artists lately.
Oh!
I love me some Ari. I can jam out to so many Ariana Grande songs. Her recent stuff, I haven't listened to her absolute most recent album as of the time this was being recorded, but her most recent stuff I still enjoy. I still think it's great. She's slipped down a little bit, not as big of a fan, but this song is right in that era of her music that I just am all over. Break Free.
Break Free. I just love her vocals on this. I don't know. I wish she would sing like this more. That's all I got. I wish she would sing like that more. It's good.
Yeah, it's a fun one.
All right,
Break Free, Ariana Grande. Then over to me. This one sort of keeping with the same ideas, same connection, sort of like Ariana Grande. Next one, Firework by Katy Perry. Oh man, Firework is a fun one. Again, total just, I say this in the most loving way, total pop drivel. Just absolutely like very little like substantial content, really almost antithesis, the opposite of what we were talking about with Paramore and Coldplay, that this is not really an emotionally driven song. This song is all just about totally. like this song is, baby, you're a firework. You are powerful. I know that we are not females, but man, I listen to this one as a female empowerment jam, and I can't help but be empowered myself. I know I have no need to be empowered as a white male, but if we're being honest about it.
Real thing in this day and age.
But it is always good to feel empowered by a song. And I think Firework by Katy Perry really does that, even though, again, totally not like what we usually listen to.
It's a jam. And Sam, let me just ask you, do you ever feel like a
plastic bag?
Like a plastic bag.
Drifting through the wind, wanting to start again?
Do you?
I mean, really, it just as a complete side note, if you haven't seen the movie, I think The Interview, yes, Rogan and James Franco, the scene with Firework is so hilarious. It is a great scene from that movie. It just is absolutely hilarious.
I mean, just talk about a song that was used like well to portray a comedic punchline. That's perfect.
Perfect. All right. Moving on. Next one. Fireflies by Owl City.
Fireflies
by Owl City. What a great song.
I like to make myself believe.
You could just jam out to that one. It's very much back in that like 2000s era, maybe early 2010s. Just has that great feel good sound, just sort of like like everything that we like in the serious nature of Paramore and Coldplay, this group had a similar sound instrument-wise, but chose to use it the exact opposite. They're not angsty. They're not, at least in this song, they're not angsty. They're not angry. They're not emotional. They're just mad in love.
And if you never knew, Owl City is a one-man band. That is right. He did all of the. He got interested in programming, I think, and like did a lot of electronic sounds. I think Owl or Fireflies was written completely on his computer, if I remember right. So it's insane.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it's really, really just weird. It hasn't made too much music since, but you're kind of a cool artist, Owl City.
Mm-hmm.
Can you read me those lyrics again? We were talking about them earlier.
Yeah, give me a second.
Sam is going to read the most beautiful lyrics that you have ever heard. If you've never heard Fireflies, or even if you just haven't been paying attention to the words like me, this made me chuckle.
This song does have a lot of very, I would say, actually quite nice, beautiful imagery. But some of these lines right here are just a little bit, they went a little bit too far. Because I'd get 1,000 hugs from 10,000 lightning bugs as they tried to teach me how to dance.
Woo!
A foxtrot above my head, a sock hop beneath my bed, a disco ball is just hanging by a thread. we will have another conversation another time about ridiculous lyrics in songs. That one, you may see a return of Fireflies.
1,000 hugs.
At that conversation.
Oh my gosh.
Oh boy. All right.
All right, back over to me for number 7. Guys, it's Riding Solo by Jason Derulo. The man that literally signs his name off at the end of every song. Jason Derulo, like, who does that? What is he, Pitbull? I mean, come on. But Riding Solo, I think that's his debut single. It's a jam. It's a jam. Okay. Like, I've been in a committed relationship for years, but so it's like I shouldn't blast that out of my car because it's definitely about just breaking up with somebody, like feeling good now that you're on your own. But like it's so just infectiously funny and just I don't know, like I think it's great. But yeah, I shouldn't like it near as much as I do, but it's a
oh man.
It's a
bop. For me, I agree. It is a bop of a song. Part of why it's a guilty pleasure for me is the knowledge that Jason Derulo is a classically trained opera singer.
Oh no!
That he knows how to sing the beautiful classical opera. And even though I love the sound of this song, I don't know why he doesn't use his beautiful opera voice. It drives me crazy.
Yeah,
he uses a good form of his voice that matches with pop, and I understand it that way. Like, release just a song that's not that.
Coldplay released a gospel song. Come on, Derulo, you can give us some classic stuff. I think that's the thing about it. Like, if he had just other, like, the reason this is a guilty pleasure is because, like, outside of this, like, it's kind of hard for me to like justify listening to his other music. I'm just kind of like, wow, this is like a very specific audience that this is targeted to, and that audience is definitely not me. He played at our county fair maybe like 2 years ago, and not trying to cast any judgments on any 23-year-old men that went to that concert, but there was a lot of 15-year-old girls that went to that concert, and that's kind of like, yeah, that ain't for me. Like, that's not supposed to be my guy. So that's why this is a guilty pleasure song for me.
We like it anyway.
We do. All right. The next song from the Goofy movie. It's Eye to Eye by Tevin Campbell. Woo!
Maybe one day on one of these podcasts, I'll give you guys my Goofy impression.
Oh no!
Not today.
Oh my!
A little much for the first podcast.
Why'd you bring it up? Going so well. But Eye to Eye from the Goofy movie. If you've never seen the movie, I recommend it. I think its Rotten Tomatoes score is a little bit low for what it deserves, but it's a solid movie about Max and his father Goofy on a road trip, and the father-son bonding, and it culminates in this concert that they go to, and this beautiful song, Eye to Eye, the letter I, the number 2, and another letter I. Wow, it's like it was a 90s boy band song. That's, I mean, if it was actually like released by a 90s boy band, like it'd be up there with Bye 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 by NSYNC.
It's also got a nice, I think, kind of similar, like a Michael Jackson-y feel at times, especially in Tevin Campbell's voice. He does a nice, like sort of that boy band-y feel, but also that little blend of some Michael. Some good stuff.
It's so beautiful. I don't even know if it's guilty pleasure. I'll tell anybody I love that song. So
I think we only say it's a guilty pleasure. Again, if we didn't make this point clear at the beginning, we're not actually guilty about liking any of these.
Oh, there's a couple we might be.
Well, yeah, sure. Creep and Shiny Happy People. Like when the band themselves really don't like it, then maybe we're a little guilty. But we will. Any song, we're not guilty about liking any song ourselves. We'll tell people our honest opinion whether we like it or not. What I find interesting about Eye to Eye, especially, is that out of the Goofy movie, which I don't know if you know this, Blake, but the Goofy movie was like Disney designed it to be like a C-list movie they make. They were like, we need to give our, like, more or less something like we need to give our creators something, or we need to have something that's just direct to DVD, direct to like something to play on Disney Channel as a treat.
Oh, I think I did hear about this.
It was not meant to be anything that would be like widely remembered. There's lots of movies out there like
effort into it and still made an amazing movie.
Exactly. The creators knew they weren't given as good of a budget or as good of really anything to make this movie, and yet they put the work in. To quote Dwayne The Rock Johnson, he always talks about putting the work in. They put in the work, and they put out, I think, what ended up being probably the most popular Disney movie from that year. And I think part of that's they got a little lucky because whatever else they released, Disney released that year to wider acclaim. Didn't really do as well, but like I said, they put in the work, and out came this amazing song, Eye to Eye, alongside a truly wonderful, just a fun, lighthearted kids movie with a sequel that isn't half bad either.
So if you go watch that movie, Sam maybe will do his Goofy impression.
Maybe. You gotta show me some pictures. Watching the Goofy movie. Down in the comments.
Don't know where it's at, probably on Disney Plus. So
yep.
We are not sponsored by Disney Plus. I would just like to point that out. If anyone knows how to set that up, let us know.
Yes, exactly. We will happily take a sponsorship.
Please.
But no, we're not currently. Anyway, moving on.
9.
Song number 9, a Deadpool favorite, Careless Whisper. Careless Whisper by technically written, in case you forgot, that's the iconic moment. Technically written just by George Michael, but really it's a Wham song. We looked it up, and Wham, the members of Wham play on the song, even if it's technically just George Michael.
I mean, Wham's a duo. Like the other guy wrote it with them. It's all of Wham. Okay,
it's Wham. It is. We will basically call it a Wham song. And yes, it just has that like. All the credit.
That poor other guy in Wham. Like, geez. No one ever says his name.
Oh my gosh. Well, Careless Whisper has that like just so like 80s emotional sound of just like, I'm never gonna dance again. Like you're just like, oh, okay, buddy.
All right.
But man, you just listen, the melody, you just start swaying and you're grooving to it. You can't help it. And then that saxophone solo just comes in,
Action.
heads it up, and you're just like, oh, suddenly my hair is coated in hairspray. I have shoulder pads for days. And I'm just like, I've never been alive in the 80s, and yet I feel just sucked into the moment.
80s.
I just suddenly am the 80s. So,
Oh
Careless Whisper.
All right.
Careless Whisper.
Careless
All right.
Whisper.
Number 10. Fine. Last one on this one. Again, another surprise just based off of the title of it. If you're watching the video, you can see Blake doing a nice little 70s jive and dance. Our number 10, Dancing Queen by ABBA. What a classic. I mean, I have seen plenty of videos myself of groups of women ranging from 15 to 75 in groups, just jamming out, shouting the words to this song. And man, when I see it, all I want to do is go over and join them, because it is such a good song. The lyrics, even as basic as they are, as weird as they can be at times, just the sound of ABBA in general is just, oh, I could go on and on about ABBA. This song is purely a guilty pleasure, simply because it is not typically the men that are interested in ABBA. But
so what happened to disco?
Exactly. The disco sound in ABBA is so good. I think it needs to make a comeback.
Oh man.
Mamma Mia movies have set it up well for ABBA Part 2 to come in and knock it out of the park.
There's some fellow Chicagoans that would disagree with you.
Classic disco, classic roller skating jam, classic just pure joy condensed into music in almost every ABBA song you listen to. So, I mean, really, guilty pleasure. We put Dancing Queen to give a name of a song, but at least for me, I won't speak for you, Blake. Just all of ABBA.
All of ABBA.
Purely.
Big plug for Mamma Mia and the amazing movie that it is. Meryl Streep, Dennis Quaid. There's other people.
What I will say, if you like the movie, listen to the actual group. Because as much as I love Meryl Streep and Pierce Brosnan and Colin Firth, and I think Colin Firth is in it. I think he's one of the guys.
Did I make up Dennis Quaid?
Maybe. I don't know.
I made that up.
I don't remember the cast because I don't really care for the movie as much. If you like the movie, listen to just ABBA singing the songs. Because as much as I love those actors, they can't sing as well as ABBA actually does. Yeah. I know, hot take.
Oh, wow.
That's a bold statement, but Meryl Streep doesn't have the best voice. So listen to ABBA singing their songs. And if you're out there listening, you're like, oh, Mamma Mia is a bad, dumb movie. Ugh. Listen to ABBA anyway, because the plot of the movie is strange and weird. You might like it, you might not, but the music in it is solid nonetheless. So Dancing Queen, if you're looking for a place to start, but really any song by ABBA, Chiquitita, Money, 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 I could keep going on and on.
Waterloo, Fernando.
Exactly. Yes. Oh, Fernando, that's a good one. That is a good one. Oh, anyway, I won't bore you just by naming ABBA songs more and more.
And if you need a name for your band that you're all of a sudden creating because you got inspired by this podcast, take a note from ABBA. Just see if the first initial of all your names works into a nice word or a kind of word like ABBA.
Yep.
Yappity-roo. Well,
so just to give credit where it's due real quick, the other member of Wham is Andrew Ridgeley.
Andrew Ridgeley. Say that man's
heard...
name more.
Andrew Ridgeley deserves some credit, deserves a lot of credit, in fact. George Michael, also deserves a lot of credit.
Yeah, if you just say George and Andrew, just like George Michael and that Andrew guy, like give him some credit. Mm-hmm. He was in Wham.
And to tie it back to, I will do my best with this, to just mention the ABBA members specifically, and I will do my best because they are a Swedish
group. It's gonna be so bad.
Agnetha Falkskog, Annie Frid Lingstad, Bjorn Alveus, and Benny Andersson. So the first one was the tough one. There was an umlaut over the A, and I had no idea what to do with
Norway, I believe.
They're from Sweden.
Sweden. Sorry, completely wrong. But
no, it's in generally, at least as far as we as Americans understand it, they're close in the same area. They're the very northern European.
Our European geography is. Anyone's watching from Europe, we apologize.
Yeah, watching or listening from Europe. Our apologies on the butchering of ABBA's names.
Yes. What we want to make very clear, though, we want this to be an interactive channel. Please leave comments, leave suggestions, whatever you want. If you've got ideas for us to talk about on our podcast, we've got a boatload. But if you've got ideas, if they're good, we'll talk about them. We want to talk about what y'all want to hear. So leave comments. Definitely leave your guilty songs. I know this episode has run a bit long, but this was the first one. We're going to try to keep it close to an hour usually. So
we had to introduce ourselves. That's what the extra time is on this one. We'll be able to just jump right in on topics next time.
That is true. That is true. So, well, signing off, I'm Blake.
And I'm Sam.
See you guys in the next one. Thanks for stopping by.
Thank you guys. Bye-bye-bye.